Hello world of YouTube, here today to respond to Steven Vlog, to Steven George of Steven Vlog, and Steven plays Infamy, rising, not infamy, but famous from fame. He's getting famous, that thing. But yeah, I know I don't normally post video responses or videos in general filmed on camera on Let's Play days, but today is an exception, and I've been making exceptions recently because I haven't been filming as much as I'd like to because school is being a hassle, but not a hassle, but it's been very busy for me. But nevertheless, Steven George brings up an interesting topic today, and it kind of ties in with video games, so it fits with Let's Play Day, you know. So it's about emulation, which again heavily ties into one of my Let's Plays I'm doing right now. But yeah, when's it good to emulate? When's it not? You know, he brings up a good point. Or he brings up several points that are good, you know, supporting the developer, all that stuff. And honestly, I've never had a problem with emulating older games. And, in fact, in order to play older games even legally, you still have to emulate, you know? Like when you're buying it on a virtual console, you're still emulating the game on the console, you know? The Wii doesn't have the technology, the complete technology of a Super Nintendo, or of a TurboGrafx 16, or of a Sega Genesis, or any of those consoles, so you are emulating to some degree. It's just a legal form of it, so that would be okay. But if you didn't want to play it on your Wii, if you didn't have a Wii, or anything like that, and you wanted to play on like your laptop, or in his case a modded Xbox, you know, I don't see a problem with that, because even if you bought the game, you're putting it into another medium. Like Mischief Makers and Star Fox 64 for me. My first Let's Plays of those, or my Let's Play of Mischief Makers and the first Star Fox, were emulations, which I've owned the games, but I didn't have a capture card and I really wanted to do Let's Plays, so I did emulations of them, which I didn't see a problem with, you know? I don't see a problem with it still. I am redoing Star Fox 64 on the cartridge, but that's about it. You know, that's the only difference between the two Let's Plays. The fact that my commentary is a lot better, but yeah, I don't have a problem with emulation in that sense, or even in a sense of, or any retro game in any sense. I don't have a problem with it, you know? Like, either the games you can't get physical copies of anymore, so you have to do a form of emulation that would be legal. Like, again, like the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the GameCube. That is a legit form of emulation. That's why there's some graphical differences and problems with the game that's different than the 64 and 64 version. There are some subtle differences between the two, and it's because of emulation problems. Nah, who'd have thought? Same with backwards compatibility of like Xbox games onto the 360 or PS1 and PS2 games onto the PS3. That's a form of emulation, and the reason why there are problems with the games, because of emulation problems. Plain and simple. But again, those are other forms of emulation that people seem to not frown upon. And in the case of retro games, they're either hard to get a hold of, or they're impossible to get. Literally impossible, because they didn't come out. Take, for example, Star Fox 2, game that I'm Let's Playing. It's virtually complete. The game is virtually complete, but they never released it. However, thanks to some awesome people, they put emulators of it out there. They put ROMs of it. And I thought that's awesome. I get to play a game that I had heard about growing up, but never got to play until until when I first got into emulators. So I think in that case it's awesome. Same in the case of Mother 3 in English, you know? The only way to play that is to emulate it. So you kind of have to. There's just no way around it in some cases if you really want to play the game. So I honestly don't think that there's anything wrong with emulating, you know. At least with old school games, you know, it's hard to support old developers of older games. Like, it's hard to support Rare with Conquer without emulating it or buying Live and Reloaded. But yeah, I don't see the problem in emulating, because it's hard to support the developers. The games are really rare, or the games just are impossible because they didn't come out. However, versions of the games are available. So yeah, emulations, I'm cool with them. And I think that the world should be cool with them. I never knew there was really such a huge backlash with emulation, because I didn't think that was a problem. I thought that was like a spoken thing on the internet that like everyone's cool with emulation. But I was wrong. And I provided my points as to why I think emulations are alright. And used some examples from my very own life. So hopefully you'll like this contribution. my contribution to your discussion. I can't talk very well today, but I hope I got my points across as to why I think emulation is okay, why I endorse it. In retrospect, in retro games and modern games, you can still support the developer, and I highly suggest you do that. I don't suggest pirating new games like Portal 2. You shouldn't pirate games nowadays out of modern games because they're still readily available. You can still support the developer. However, in like 30 or so years down the line, when the games are more sparse, which they shouldn't be because discs and digital distribution are on the rise, so unless they reinvent digital distribution and these games are harder to find, you should still support the developers. But in the case of older games, it's perfectly okay. Save batteries in Pokemon games die and they're hard to replace, so you're gonna play emulations of it because you want to relive those memories of, raising a Magikarp to a Gyarados or raising your Charmander to a Charizard or whatever. So I think that emulation of retro games is perfectly okay. Modern games, no. Modern games, no. Piracy is bad for that, but yeah, that's where my morality steps into play, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you enjoy this. Steven, his audience, my audience. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I will see you another day.